So, welcome ladies and gentlemen. As clockwork, Viola Davis has come out over on Twitter to say, like I said at TIFF, if you don't plop down money on opening weekend, you're not going to see black females leading a movie again. Please continue supporting The Woman King. That's right, ladies and gents. The new marketing strategy. We're not going to, not content, should I say, with slandering and insulting your potential audience. Now, actors and Hollywood will guilt trip you into seeing their movie by basically saying, well, if you don't support this, you're never going to see them again. Magical. Just magical. And as I tweeted, Viola Davis is the only black leading lady ever in all of history. And The Woman King is the only film with black female leads. It'll only ever be this way if you don't support. Please think of the slave nation of Dahomey and support. And then, of course, ladies and gents, hashtag boycott The Woman King started a trend. Actually supported mainly by black people. That's actually what's been happening here, which is utterly hilarious. And this goes to show a lot, when Viola Davis is running around saying, look, you must support this film because apparently Viola Davis thinks she's the only black woman in history to ever star in a film ever. Despite the fact there's countless black female-led movies, but, whatever. They didn't exist before Viola Davis, of course. Most black people are going, hold on a minute. I don't really think I want to watch a movie glorifying, the slave nation. So, yeah, that has actually been the thing. Lots of people have been like, no. I mean, this one, for instance, if you're a black American that cares about your ancestors, boycott The Woman King. I don't know Viola Davis' motives for going through with such a dishonest and shameful movie, but The Woman King let it flop. The Dahomey fought to uphold slavery in Africa, just like the Confederacy. I mean, they did. They did fight to uphold slavery in Africa. And, it's not just this, it's also the hugely dishonest interviews that have been taking place where actual stars of the movie have been saying all of this is true. Because this is the thing. Most things will just go, yeah, based on true events or whatever. I mean, this movie, the actual stars are running their mouth saying, this is true. The media doesn't question it. The media doesn't push any of it. No. I mean, even here, it even says something, based on historical events. None of this is, the only historical events is that there were women called the Agoji, and that there was a place called Dahomey, and they did have the slave king himself, Gezo. That's basically it. The rest of it is completely fabricated, utter nonsense. And then that brings us to the director running their mouth, and Polygon, and this is indicative of all media outlets running their mouths on this film, because none of them are being honest. None of their... I mean, there's so much pushback you could have had in this interview, which they just, again, completely didn't do. But let's take a look, because this is hilarious, and I'll break this all down, right? So we're going to scroll all the way through this nonsense. Don't want to get here. We're just literally straight to the interview. Did you start with real-world history as a bedrock of set pieces, or start with action, then fact-check your choices? And here we have it, right? This is indicative of it all. When I go to see a historical epic, for me as a filmmaker, and as me as the audience, I'm looking at that screen and taking it as truth. So there you have the motive straight away. Fabrication of history. And understanding fully that people will be gullible enough to believe it. And I probably shouldn't do that as much, knowing what people do. But Braveheart is in my top 10 of all time. I've watched it 100 times, and that was really the template. So Braveheart, the film which has been lambasted for historical inaccuracy, was your template for a film where you have the actors running around saying it's all true? Really? This is mental. But I knew we had this really good script written by Dana Stevens, and then it's my job as the director to do that deep dive into the research. So much of what I found got me excited to put it into the script, to then put it in the script. More truth, more authenticity of who these women were, who the kingdom was, that dynamic socially and in the government, and what was going on the outskirts of that. Oh, this is interesting. So, do you show any of the bloodthirsty Agoji Mutilating men, women, children? No? None of that? Oh. Where's this truth then? What's a specific way history amplified your vision? There are a couple of things. One of the fascinating things about these women is that they legit beat men. One of their first documented battles against the French had them killed, or essentially all of them killed, mostly by bayonets. So no, they didn't. They were awful in combat. So how did they do that? And I learned about their training, the fact that they trained 24/7, no they didn't, and that they were taught to not show pain. They literally had drills to do that. Think about if you're fighting someone, you're stabbing them, they're showing nothing, and how intimidating that can be. So that's where our spear challenge scene came from. And when you're working with Lashana, she inspires you. You want to give her more and more and more, because she's effing amazing. But remember, ladies and gents, only black women in history, Viola Davis. And then the music and the dancing, learning that was an integral part of the culture as well. What, like slavery? I love how it's just like they're running around with the blind stick, you know, just literally having no idea about anything. Just go, oh no, let's just try and avoid all of this. Yeah, no, let's definitely not. Let's, move away from that truth. Oh, it's fine, whatever. Oh my god. But it gets worse. This nonsense interview continues. It really does. So here we have it, right? We'll scroll down. Did the cultural specificity of the Dahomey allow you to rethink action compared to the more contemporary setting of the old guard? So, I spoke about Braveheart, and Slumdog Millionaire was also a template. I remember seeing that movie, and the cultural specificity took me into a world I had no clue about. This woman is mental. So, talking about weapons, of art, blah blah blah, all of this, again, sure, fine, whatever, and then we get to this. And then there's the violence the Agoji put themselves through to train. How did the film an obstacle course training sequence where the women tear through a trench of razor-sharp brambles? That looked rough. The Agoji had to go through that 3 times in real life. We didn't have that much screen time. Figuring out how to shoot that was tough because I knew you had to believe it as an audience, and I couldn't send my actors through it, even though some would have been willing to. But everything on the outside, right in front of the camera, was real. And inside was manufactured brambles. They used 3D to build all those brambles. So I was always shooting through real brambles, and it tricks the audience's mind. All of this stuff, only this stuff, paints themselves out to be brutal warriors in terms of what they then put themselves through, but not what they put other people through. Cultural specificity only on one singular thing. The Woman King also plays as a frank portrait of African slavery, where they're challenging matching the Hollywood grandeur with that blunt portrayal. It's not nearly blunt enough. It was something I knew we needed to tell the truth about, but you didn't. Almost every society engaged in slavery in some respect, and the difference here, prior to Europeans coming, and this is where we get to blatant lies, by the way, actual historical lies. Prior to Europeans coming, as in any other type of society, it was about prisoners of war, never commerce. That's what Europeans brought to it. But we also set this film specifically at the time where the kingdom was at a crossroads and Gezo was having to decide whether to capture other Africans and sell them to European slavers. Wrong. It is literally... Gezo was known as the Slave King. The Slave King. It was the founding principle of their culture. It was the triumph of their culture. He fought tooth and nail to continue it. And then again, we get to more and more nonsense. Because it was literally half the kingdom wanted to abolish their involvement and the other half wanted to keep it. Because it brought them wealth. So the Agoji and Aniska represented that group and wanted to abolish it. So here's the interesting part there, is that the Agoji were never, they were never about that in any way, shape or form. They used to specifically sacrifice slaves. They over 800 slaves were sacrificed when Gezo died. It was yearly massacres of slaves that the Agoji would go and do. It was specifically their job to do it. So you can see how this is quite egregious, and how even in this, as an interview, she's talking such nonsense. And Gezo had to make that decision. In America, certainly, black people are taught that our existence in America begins with enslavement. We're not taught that we came so far beyond that. Having that knowledge going up can absolutely be a game changer. So I'm hoping foremost you go and you're entertained and you can have fun with the film, but you get to see yourself reflected in a way you never have and change your mindset. To what? We're taught that we came from so far beyond that. We're not taught that we came so far beyond that. What are you saying? So I can't wrap my head around this nonsense. In America, black people are taught that our existence in America begins with enslavement. We're not taught that we came from so far beyond that. But you are literally portraying the individuals that captured black people's ancestors in America now and sent them to America as slaves. And you're trying to say we're not taught that we came from so far beyond that. No, you're not. But this film doesn't do that. What? You know what would have been much better? If you're trying to do like a black empowerment movie? Show people fighting against the Dahomey. Why didn't you do that? Why didn't you taking such liberties with history? Why didn't you do that? Oh my God. I actually cannot wrap my head around this nonsense. It's so egregious. It is so egregious. So I'm really glad that people are waking up to this. And again, like, Boycott the Woman King is there saying, boycott, no, see you later, not interested. Stop dismissing the disrespect of our ancestors because you like the black or celebrity. Please understand, they have chosen the bag over the black community. Boycott the Woman King. That is, it is their ancestors. The movie, it's unreal. Why are people telling us to go see the film before we boycott? Does that even make sense? We're boycotting a film depicting slave traders as warriors. If we go see the film, then it wouldn't be a boycott. I mean, again, this is it. People are idiots. The same wouldn't be said if you were making a film about Nazis and the right-hand man of Hitler was like, I'll tell you what, actually, we're going to fight to, keep up our... we're just going to fight to save our way of life of, committing mass genocides. Like, it's just nonsense. This is insane. And I'm so glad people are waking up to it. So glad. So glad.